Content writing has been a lucrative market for a couple of years, especially copywriting. But since AI revolution has taken over our industry, we're seeing that people are using AI bots rather than hiring writers. Especially SEO updates are dropping the traffic of many websites, which also is affecting the writing industry. No one of us knows what's going on and what will happen in the near future. Even the leaders are concerned and confused. I am Kazi Mustansara Tafsir, hosting on behalf of Agent Writing. We are SEO and content writing agency from Bangladesh. We have clients from more than 20 countries. Major clients are from USA, UK, Canada, and China. I personally have been in this market for over 5 years now. I am myself a content writer and I have been working with multiple organizations, and now I'm working with agent writing. Today, our guest is Christine, who has earned more than $400,000 from Upwork only. She will share her journey to reach this point, and after AI revolution, how she's managing her career in copywriting, and what is her next plan if AI replaces the copywriting job. So, Christine, would you
Hi.
like to share some, hi, would you like to share something about yourself? A little background about yourself at first?
Yeah, so I'm Christine. I'm from Toronto, Canada. Um, I I am very excited to be here. I took an undergrad in psychology and sociology at a university here in Ontario, Canada. At one point of my life, I thought I was going to be a therapist. And then I guess somehow I ended up taking on a summer job in web communications. And I just loved it. Like, I created a strategy for social media. I did a lot of writing for a healthcare website. And I was really passionate about healthcare, and I've always loved writing. So I was like, okay, maybe this is what I should do, because I get to work in a health environment, but also like combine like my passion for communication. So after taking on that summer job, I kind of switched my career path and took on a post grad in public relations at one of Canada's top PR schools, and it was a very competitive year and a half program. I really loved it. I interned at one of the biggest children's hospitals here in Canada. And then I decided to work at a few agencies. And eventually I decided to branch out and, become a freelancer. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I felt like this was the right path for me. And I joined Upwork very early on in my career. And this is where I am today. Today, I've earned over 400,000 on the platform. I've worked with nearly 400 clients, so it's been quite the journey. But it's been very exciting and unexpected.
Yeah, that surely is. Since we're talking about your freelancing journey, what was your first freelancing project and how did you land it?
So my first freelancing project was with a healthcare client on Upwork. They were a physiotherapy client based in the UK. So it's pretty interesting right off the bat to work with somebody international instead of just working with, a Canadian client or a North American client. I signed up for Upwork. Honestly, like, it was the first time hearing about Upwork, and I don't think even like 6 or 7 years ago, Upwork is what it is today. So I didn't have a lot of high expectations. I just was like, who knows if I can make money from this, but I'm going to apply. And then I set a rate, probably much lower than like what I was worth, but I just decided, okay, got to start somewhere. Landed this client, and it opened a lot of doors to working with many different clients on the platform.
Your first project seems very interesting. So we would like to know more. Can you share some key milestones in your freelancing career that contributed to your success?
Yeah, definitely. I guess like I would say that I after working with that first client, I worked with a huge range of different clients. I thought I would mainly focus on healthcare, but there are so many opportunities on the platform that just kept coming my way, even fashion clients, wedding clients. So I kind of tried a little bit of everything to see where my niche is. And I know a lot of freelancers choose a very specific, like they say like freelancers today definitely should choose a niche. But for me, I guess like I've learned a lot about different industries and don't necessarily have a niche. But I guess because of that, I've gotten to work with a lot of cool clients. I worked with NASDAQ, which was amazing because obviously everyone knows who NASDAQ is. I did some of their social media on a DEI initiative for Latin awareness. So that was really cool. I also worked with a really well-known beauty brand, at least in North America, called Farsali. They sell their products, at Sephora. And I guess, working with different clients, I started to climb the ladder of Upwork. Started, getting the top rated status and then the top rated plus status. And then I guess because I worked so much on the platform, brought in so much business, a couple of years ago, I was interviewed by one of Upwork's like internal team members, and they did this review process about my qualifications and kind of validate, okay, she knows what she's doing. And because of that, I was given the expert vetted certification, which means I guess like not only am I like top 1%, but like there's a lot of people who are top 1%. I'm top 1% verified by the platform. So, sorry about that. So that means that now enterprise clients like Farsali, like NASDAQ, other major corporations and organizations are recommended me before they're recommended other people on the platform. So that's been a game changer in my career as well.
Uh, since it worked out for you working on different niches, do you recommend our audience to do the same,
Um, you
working on different niches?
It's a little more challenging today to become a freelancer than it was 6 or 7 years ago, or probably even like 3 years ago. I think freelancing has gone through a huge revolution, especially like during the pandemic when everyone wanted to start working virtually. I've gotten really active on LinkedIn, and the more that I've been like learning from other professionals and other freelancers, is the landscape has changed a lot, and it really is important to have a niche today. I think it's good to choose like an industry to focus on, or maybe you're solely a website copywriter, or I guess like an ebook copywriter or a white page copywriter. So I guess the short form answer is today it might be a little bit more difficult to be so diverse. I think it is good to zone in on something that you're really passionate about and really focus on that.
That's a good advice, I think.
Yeah.
But since you work in a lot of projects, how do you manage your time effectively to handle multiple projects at the same time?
Honestly, like early on in my career, I wasn't the best at managing my time. I didn't really have boundaries with my clients as much as I do today. I was working in the middle of the night. I was working very early. I was working all the time, probably like 24 hours a day. But I think that's very common for people at the beginning of their career to kind of get where they want to go. Now, I think that's not like a healthy way, and that's not necessarily what I would recommend to freelancers. I think when you start working with a client, it's really important to establish those boundaries. I would say use project management tools like Monday.com with your clients. Like establish times that you're going to communicate with them, and that you won't, that like your office hours, and those things have really, really helped me kind of manage my task load, because it can be very challenging when you're getting dozens of messages an hour, and and I think time blocking is really beneficial as well, kind of making sure that you block times in your calendar, not only for work but also for self-care, like to take a walk in the middle of the day, or actually block off that hour to have lunch where you're not having lunch just in front of your computer. I think all of those, I'm a big advocate of self-care because I think I've experienced burnout a few times in my career. And I think it is really important to make sure that you have that time for yourself because you can't like pour from an empty cup.
I agree with you. So, but do you have any specific routine or schedule that you follow to stay productive?
Yeah, definitely. I think now, at this point in my career, I'm trying to, I try to work from 9 to 5. It's funny because I decided to be a freelancer to get out of the 9 to 5 rat race. And then I still find that establish some sort of daytime routine where I can communicate with my clients and have the evenings off is really beneficial for me. I try to do a workout at noon, and just, try to actually tune off in the night. It's hard, especially when you're on Upwork, you're getting interview requests all the time. Like you want the money, but I think ultimately it's okay to check a few messages outside of those office hours, but you really need to remember that it's not only about the hustle, that it is important to have a personal life as well, because that will contribute to your professional life.
Yeah, you're completely right. I feel like we have a work life to enjoy our personal life, right?
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next question. How do you balance work and personal life as a freelancer? Like, what do you do to like when you're like getting overwhelmed with work? What do you do?
Well, honestly, I've had several coaches. I try to follow like the advice of like several life coaches, and I also have a therapist that I talk about when I'm stressed. Full disclosure, I think that that's very normal. Therapy is very good. So I guess when I'm overwhelmed, I've learned a lot of good tactics, like taking a walk in the middle of the day. You might have a very frustrating client, like this is going to happen. And I think that it's really important for me to center myself. I have anxiety, and like just taking a deep breath, like going to like just like be cognizant, like being in the outdoors, putting away your phone and just being mindful of your surroundings and just getting your mind off things a little bit, I think can help you make sure that you're showing up as your best self. And as I've said, I think that that really helps you do your best professionally as well.
Yeah. Since we're talking about projects and clients, what strategies do you use to consistently attract new clients and projects?
So basically, I'm always trying to figure out new ways to optimize my online presence, whether it's on LinkedIn, which I've really started to amp up this year. I think that Upwork is great, but there's a lot of fees on Upwork as well. So I'm trying to figure out like different ways to find new clients. And I guess just like on LinkedIn, I've started posting more regularly. Usually I try to post around 3 times a week. For my clients, I recommend even like up to 5 times a week to post to really get that like new brand awareness. And just to connect with my audience on there. I think posting regularly on LinkedIn, using different hashtags to find new writing projects on there, new strategy projects, has really been beneficial to find new clients off of Upwork. And those clients, Upwork doesn't take a big fee with, so that's really great to be able to just work with clients directly. But on Upwork, I'm trying to develop personal pitches. So when I send a cover letter, I don't just send a generic cover letter. I try to personalize it to the company I'm applying for the position for, or the person that I'm speaking to who sent out the job listing, and maybe talk about how my skills cater to that job. I think that it's really important to be personal. And, when I actually get that interview, I like to talk to them as a person and not just like selling my business. I think um, business is all about connecting with people, especially in marketing and communications. It's developing those relationships, and I think that when you take that approach where you're not just trying to sell, but you're trying to showcase why they want to work with you as a person, that's really helped me secure more clients.
Since we're talking about, networking, how important is networking in freelancing and how do you approach it?
I think networking is very important. Um, Oftentimes, like when I'm on LinkedIn, I notice that somebody posts a job application, and then um, there's somebody who comments, and then they tag all of their copywriting friends. They're like, "I'm not available right now, but this person would be really good to work on your project." And I obviously that's a product of networking. I truthfully haven't networked too much, like outside, because I haven't worked that much outside of Upwork. I built a really lucrative career on there just by having such a great reputation and a high rating that I haven't really needed to network. But now, because I'm trying to move more off the platform, I'm attending a lot more events in person in Toronto, trying to look into virtual networking opportunities, commenting and engaging and building those relationships online with like-minded people in like similar industries on LinkedIn. So I would say that especially for people starting off in their career, like today, that they should really start that relationship building early on, because it will take them a long way, like having people in their corner referring them for opportunities as well. And you can learn a lot from your network too. So it's not just about the referral, but just like the opportunities to learn and grow from one another is invaluable.
Since you've already shared a lot of tips, can you share any tips for creating a standout freelancer profile on platforms like Upwork or Fiverr?
Yeah, so definitely. I think that there's a few key things to creating a standout profile. You really need to, similar to LinkedIn, you need to optimize your header or headlines. So maybe really think about your unique selling proposition. What makes you stand out from other people? You might be in a saturated industry. Like being a content writer is very competitive now. Again, like, do you focus on a niche? Like, is there like a specific writing style that you have that's different? Are you uh, branding heavy? Like, are you a branding expert that brings that aspect to writing? I guess for me, I really am strategic, so I like to position myself as that on my profile, and just taking that like strategic approach before I even start any writing task. So the first thing would be start with developing that really unique headline. Then definitely having a good cover photo helps, looking approachable, professional, make sure that it's very clear that that you look confident and happy. I think that those things make people attracted to you. And then I guess, obviously your cover letter. Just I wouldn't recommend necessarily using AI for your cover letter, especially if you're a writer. Just think about um, telling that story about where you came from, like maybe your unique path to getting to where you are today. I think, again, as I talk about when I build relationships with clients, even writing your cover letters, you're the first point where people see who you are. Like, think about how to tell that in a unique way is really important, especially as a writer. It's kind of like the first piece of writing that somebody gets to see about you. So So I think that those are some really beneficial ways, but also adding a portfolio is really important as well, and a newish feature that they have on Upwork where you can do that, and people can see your excellent work right off the bat instead of only when you apply for a job is helpful.
Since we're talking about new features and new updates, what is your opinion on the new bidding system of Upwork? Is it good for new freelancers?
So when you talk about the bidding system, do you mean like when you have to like apply for like with certain credits and then you can add more credits? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Honestly, I feel like the bidding system's terrible. And I think that's because like it's very expensive already to be on Upwork. And I think that it kind of makes it challenging for people maybe who are lower income or in areas of the world um where like you might not have as like high, people might not have as high of an hourly rate as somebody in North America. Like that like deters them from being able to maybe necessarily position themselves and their amazing skills as high as possible to get the job. I think that so I've seen some people apply with like 100 credits for one job, and I believe that that's like $25 American to apply just for a job where you might not get the credits back. um, and honestly, like I think that it creates kind of a system where there's inequalities. And I really think that Upwork needs to change this. I've seen a lot of anger about this system, frustration, people wanting to leave Upwork. And I think that Upwork should listen, because, in a world where like we want like people, everyone from the entire world joining Upwork, we want people from like multiple paths. Like we want to encourage everyone to freelance. I feel like it doesn't really create a system where it makes that possible as much. What do you think?
I think it's very demotivating for
Yeah,
new freelancers to even try to join Upwork because of this new bidding system.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's a huge buy-in cost, and I mean, hopefully they'll change it, because as I said, Upwork is already expensive enough, and we're giving Upwork so many fees, even just from every contract. I love Upwork. Obviously, I built a great career on the platform, but it's discouraging or demotivating when we're paying a percentage of every contract to them, and then they're being greedy a little bit.
Yeah, I understand. Um, let's get out of Upwork for a bit. Do you
Yeah.
work outside of Upwork?
Yeah, so I do. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to build some really good connections here in Toronto, and with clients in the United States as well. Um, I have, and because I built really good relationships with them and done really good work with them, they've referred me to their network. So again, like the power of networking, the power of doing like really good work and building those personal connections has been key for me in my career. So yeah, I've used LinkedIn to find freelancer opportunities and longer term contracts, but I've also just done some cold outreach via email. That hasn't been as successful, but I have gotten a few clients from that. And I don't know if you guys have Groupon. Do you guys have Groupon in in Asia? No. So I guess it's this marketplace where, say, there's a business that wants to bring in more people to like their restaurant or their spa business. So instead of $100 massage, it will be like $50 massage, and you would buy this voucher on the website. I actually started off my career outside of Upwork on Groupon, reaching out to these businesses. So I think that that's a really good idea. If you guys have any marketplace like that in your area, whoever's watching, reaching out to those businesses and creating a personal pitch, because obviously they're reducing their services because they need more business. So reaching out to them directly, being like, hey, I can help you get to where you want to go without having to reduce your services by 50% is another approach that I've taken that was really effective, and got me a lot of business.
Since we already talked about clients and maintaining a good relationship, can you share with our audience how do you establish and maintain good relationships with your clients?
Definitely. So I guess, as I said, communication is key, but also boundaries are key as well. I would say that keeping those lines of communication open is important. After I start a contract on Upwork, I often allow my clients to contact me on WhatsApp as well. It's just a lot faster. It makes them feel like happy that they can connect with me very easily from their mobile devices, wherever they are, especially if we're working on an urgent task or maybe a social media project where something came up and something needs to be posted right away. I think that having those multiple lines of communication can be really effective. But I guess even before that, taking the time to understand your client's needs about the project, asking all those questions. Like, I think that there's never too many questions that you can ask. It's normally I have an onboarding and branding identity questionnaire that I always send over to my clients when I start working with them. So taking time to understand their needs, ask those questions. If you need clarification, get that clarification. But also, if you've been working with a client for a while, regularly checking in with them and seeing if they're still happy with your performance and if their requirements are still being met. I've actually created client surveys where I send them over maybe every 3 months to check in and see, okay, are you still happy with my service? And they don't even, it can be anonymous. I'm just curious to see if there's anything that they think that can be improved, because obviously it's important to me to always kind of be going above and beyond. And I guess obviously always delivering high quality work and keeping in touch with your clients after finishing the project. Often I try to get their email afterwards or reach out to them on Upwork and just touch base every 6 months and see where they're at, if they need any additional help. And a lot of times they're like, we were just thinking about you, or yeah, we do, and we forgot to reach out to you, but we could use your services. So I think being reliable, being communicative, delivering high quality work, and kind of just always keeping those lines of communications open really helps.
That's great to know. But obviously, since you've been working here for a while now, you've been dealing with difficult clients, right?
Of
So
course.
how do you handle disagreements or difficult clients?
Yeah, I mean, that's still something that I'm always trying to learn how to do. I think difficult clients can cause anyone anxiety. There certainly has been clients on Upwork that have tried to take advantage of the system. But first and foremost, I think to make sure that I'm meeting client expectations, I always send a proposal before I start to work with the client. So I outline exactly what they're going to be getting from our agreement. And then there's no gray areas or there's no confusion, because I have had clients that have gone to Upwork. We've had to go through the dispute process, and they've said that they're not getting what we agreed upon. So if I have it in writing and I provide it to them up front in the Upwork conversation, then they can't really do that. They can't go to Upwork and say that the scope of work has changed, because it hasn't. Obviously, there has still been a few people who have really tried to do that through the dispute process, but obviously Upwork shut that down quite quickly. also, I think that you should kind of go with your gut, like when you're interviewing a client. Obviously, like it's very difficult economic times right now, and we all want to have as much business as possible. But I think it's going with your gut is important too. And if somebody seems difficult right off the at the beginning of your conversation, maybe is asking for like a lot of free work just to get a contract, I think that it's important to know when to say no and to step away as well, because every rating counts, and sometimes you might just not be able to please people. They'll just not be happy no matter how much you go above and beyond, no matter how talented you are. So I think I have had contracts where I've opened a contract and I realized this just wasn't a good fit. And I've actually closed the contract and given the money back in escrow because it just wasn't worth it with the unrealistic expectations that certain clients have. Um, but I guess like outside of all that, building those proposals outside of Upwork, I think it's really important to have contracts that protect you. I've worked not. I know a lot of times like clients give you contracts, but there's not often that freelancers give a contract. And I think fortunately there's a lot of like AI legal tools that will help us like protect ourselves these days. To build our own contracts, because the contract should go both ways. It's really important that we protect ourselves. I've been in situations where I've worked off of Upwork and I've lost thousands of dollars because the contract didn't protect me, and there were all of these like very difficult legal terms that I just didn't know like what they meant. So I think that protecting yourself, being aware, like setting those boundaries, knowing when to say no, uh, and and knowing that a lot of times like it's not like about you. Sometimes it's just about them. They're looking for free work. They're just not going to be happy. They're under a lot of pressure. A lot of times it might not be anything about you. So also just like trying to like not let it affect your mental health as hard as it is. I think that those are some really important things to keep in mind when you're working with challenging clients.
No, I completely get it. Because of these clients, your mental health gets affected. So sometimes it's just not worth it, all the hassle.
I've definitely
Yeah.
had tears over clients for sure. At the very beginning of my freelancing career, I was very sensitive. Now I've learned a little bit more that it's about like just business, but I'm a people person. I would say like I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm an empath. So it's hard not to like let it affect you. But like but it's just important to remember that, yeah, again, like it's not always about you, and just stay strong. And if you feel like something isn't right, it probably isn't right. And at the end of the day, like money is important, but your mental health is important too, like to build a successful career. So try to find clients that you feel comfortable with and that you can build like that stable relationship with, open communication with, and don't stress about those clients that are difficult. Like you'll end up getting a better client next time, hopefully.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Um, how do you handle pricing and negotiations with clients?
So oftentimes, like I guess I would say that I have set pricing for my big ticket items. Like I do a lot of strategy, as I said. Obviously, like I do a lot of copywriting for web and everything, but I would say that even before that, I often create like a whole digital marketing strategy or a branding strategy, because a lot of times clients just want to jump into a project like a website design or a website copywriting, but did you have your visual and verbal branding identity solidified yet? Like, if not, like, okay, let's take a step back and work on that. For those big ticket, like I guess like flat rate milestone projects, I have a fixed rate. Um, Sometimes I do negotiate with clients if they're a smaller client, if I need the business, if they're a small client that's just building, where there might be a lot of opportunities later on. I do negotiate, but I try to stick within the pricing or very close to the pricing that I've established, because it shows on your Upwork, maybe like you did a strategy for a client for 500 and then you did a strategy for a client for 1500. Like, people are going to question why it's just all over the place, why one client got one rate and another client got another. It doesn't really seem fair. So I really try, in the spirit of fairness, to establish those packages. And I guess that's normally how I do my pricing. I don't really work on hourly too much, because especially on writing tasks, like that's kind of, it doesn't really make sense. Like, so if there's maybe like a blog or a website, I think about the amount of words, and then I have a price based on in my head, based on the amount of words that will be written, and I work it out that way. But I think mainly on Upwork, it makes sense to do those flat rate projects. And also then in that case, you can take your own time. And if it takes you fast, I'm a very fast worker, so working hourly doesn't necessarily work for me. And then my clients aren't like watching every single like tap on the keyboard I do. I just get it done in my own time. And yeah.
So, what advice do you have for freelancers in terms of setting rates and managing finances?
In terms of setting rates, I would say there's a lot of good resources online, like today, where you can figure out what is the standard rate in your industry. I see these articles pop up on LinkedIn all of the time. So I would say, kind of like, especially if you're new to the industry, keep an eye out on the industry standard of rates, but also just know that you might have to start a little bit lower with your rate on Upwork, like, than you want. I started off like 6 years ago at $15 an hour, which is like, I guess, like minimum wage here in Canada, or in Toronto. And now my rate is $80 an hour, but it's been $125 an hour. So it's like, also, I guess I would say, consider like the economic situations. If you're not like getting a lot of business as well, don't be afraid to lower your rate a little bit, because you might end up getting a lot more clients at 80 than you do at 125 an hour, for instance. So I would say, think about what the industry standard is, but be flexible depending on how much business you feel like you need or want to come in at that time.
All right. How do you stay updated on industry trends and continuously improve your skills?
So I guess, like, I'm always trying to be reading. I'm trying to read more books. I wouldn't necessarily say that's going well. After university, I was like, I don't know how many more books I can read, but marketing books are great. Right now I prefer short form content, like a lot of people. I scroll a lot through LinkedIn. I watch YouTube videos, TikToks, follow influencers in those spaces in my industry, and just take in that information, engage with those people. I guess, like, and I also have done some continuing education courses as well. After university, I've gone to some colleges and done like online courses in SEO and also UX. Obviously, tools like HubSpot and getting the HubSpot certification or the Google certification is really beneficial as well. So there's a lot of great, like, obviously, like, it's great to like go to colleges or universities and pay for that and get those degrees or certifications, or but it's also like there's so many free tools online that are or very affordable ones that are at your disposal. So definitely, I would say HubSpot and Google are really good for people who are marketers or writers, but also websites like Coursera are really beneficial as well, where you can go to top schools for a very affordable price and learn from really expert people. So those are some tools that I like.
Since we're talking about tools, are there any other specific tools or courses or resources that have been particularly helpful in your professional development?
Yeah, I guess I jumped the gun a little bit. I would
Oh,
probably,
that's fine.
yeah, I would probably just say, you know, what I've mentioned, but I'm sure there's many others.
That's all right. Um, what advice do you have for someone just starting their freelancing career in digital marketing and copywriting, since you're like an expert in that, right?
Yeah. So as I would say, as I said before, like I think it's really important to establish that digital footprint. A lot of people today are constantly like optimizing their LinkedIn. They're like not only on LinkedIn, but they're building like free downloadables on their website. They're having landing pages. They're doing an email newsletter. They have an Instagram page like that promotes their services. So I think unfortunately the freelancer world is so competitive today that you kind of have to think of all like these different mediums to market yourself. I would say somebody starting off in a freelancer career should probably consider themselves as like a personality in their industry and like really like position themselves as that. Maybe not marketing on every single platform because that can be very overwhelming, but choosing like one space where you can kind of really talk about your skills, like whether it's LinkedIn where you post a lot about your personal experience working with clients and like maybe some clients that you're working with and just showcase like your knowledge there, or you're creating short-term form videos on Instagram talking about your experience there. I think for freelancers today, it's really important to have that digital footprint beyond just having a really great Upwork page, beyond having a really good portfolio. It's constantly networking, constantly going above and beyond to provide resources and like I don't know, stay in the back of your mind with clients because that will help you stand out.
Yeah, definitely. When you started working, freelancing, uh, you probably made a lot of mistakes because you were new, right?
Yeah.
So, are there any common mistakes you see new freelancers making, and how can they avoid them?
I would say that basically at the very beginning, my processes weren't necessarily in order. And I think that ended up with a lot of clients taking advantage of me, as I said before. And sometimes that ended up being with bad reviews. Like, obviously, like I've made up for that and I have a really great reputation. But I think, I think like just like setting up your processes right off the bat, like having that contract, having that, but also I guess like overcommitting to too many clients, even though you want the money and like you want like that work experience and you want to build like that reputation on Upwork. Overcommitting, which I've definitely done before, like it means that maybe you might not necessarily be able to provide that quality of work to your clients that you pride yourself on or that you want to, and that's going to affect your Upwork career and rating as well. So I would say, don't take on too many projects. Really like work on that schedule, work on the time blocking, see what you can really commit to, and time block that personal time as well. I think that those are some things that will help you right at the beginning of your career. Try to figure out exactly what you can take on based on your bandwidth, and then start those contracts off on the right foot. Those are some recommendations probably that I would take. But also make sure to put away money for taxes because there have been times at the first couple years of my career where I didn't put enough money aside for taxes. Obviously, like be aware of like the tax laws of your country, but it's not so much fun like playing catch up with the tax people, like trying to pay back money. So remember, like I would say right off the bat, put away more than you think that you need to, because it's better to get that money back at the end of the year and have like that extra 2,000, 1,000, like whatever it is, than have to spend it just and try to figure out where it's going to come from later on. I know that a lot of freelancers have issues with taxes and figuring out their finances. So maybe getting a good accountant right from the beginning of your career, or taking some accounting courses yourself. I don't know, like if everyone uses QuickBooks, but like using things like QuickBooks and stuff like is really a recommendation that I would highly recommend as well.
Towards the start, we talked about AI revolution, right?
Yeah.
And it taking over our industry. So, what are your future goals as a freelancer, and how do you plan to scale that up? Should they move on business in future by building team? What's your thought about AI?
I think AI has been very challenging for freelancers, and like a big scare for like marketers and copywriters especially. But I don't necessarily think that it's going to replace copywriters anytime soon. And I've seen a lot of conversations around this on LinkedIn. It seems like this seems to be the consensus. You can tell quite often when something is AI generated, but obviously it is worrying that AI is continuing to get better and better as we feed the machine. I think for me as a freelancer, obviously I'm trying to stay ahead of the trends and kind of keep personalizing my work and building those connections. So that really helps in like somebody choosing to work with me and my experience and my personal touch, instead of just working with the machine. But I'm also thinking, okay, if things get really bad for marketers and copywriters and AI takes over, like what can I also do as a side hustle to think about considering making other income in a career that can't really be taken over by people. So personally for me, I'm getting married next year, and I've loved wedding.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, I love wedding planning. Like it's so fun. So for me, like I've always been interested in event planning. In university, I planned like a walkathon for cardiac care and help raise a lot of money for philanthropy. So I mean, beyond like what I do on the day to day, like I think like maybe even for me, like venturing into event planning could be like really cool to do. And like that's really hard for AI to replace, like in my opinion, especially like being on the ground of events and like making sure like logistically everything goes well. So I would say that, like definitely keep honing in on your craft and like making yourself the best that you can be. But think about also, if worse comes to worse, like what can you do that like how can you improve your skills that can only be done by a human, I think is really important as well. Like we have to keep our mind open that like these are scary times, and like not just like be forced to think about, okay, what's my next career, like if things take over. Like I think it's important to be proactive now and start thinking about that and making a game plan as like a plan B if worse comes to worse. What do you think?
Much like you, I am also very interested in event planning, especially wedding planning. So that's kind of like at the back of my head. And I also am doing biotechnology as my
Wow.
major. So yeah, let's just see. But
Yeah.
yeah, everybody should have a plan B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So, is there anything else you'd like to share with aspiring freelancers, or any final thoughts?
I would say that like freelancing like isn't for everyone, and it's not like for it's not for everyone. I've worked with like my fiance who wanted to be a freelancer at one time, and one of my best friends that like wanted to follow in my footsteps. And I would say like some people just thrive better like in a team environment, in a workplace environment, like in an office, and like that's totally fine. But like try it, but also like be aware that freelancing takes a lot of long hours, that it takes a lot of discipline that you probably have to go through. literally a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to where you want to be. I would say that, but don't be like, and don't be discouraged. Like if you fail, I failed a lot of times. Like there's been slow periods as a freelancer, but I'm pretty proud of where I am today. So I think like if you feel like you have that grit, if you want, like if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, go for it. But also really consider, yeah, building again like that digital footprint to make sure that um, that you stand out, because it's very hard to become a freelancer today. So if you're going to do it, fully commit to it. Like a lot of people, they start and then they're still juggling a full-time job. But if you can, maybe even just dive right in for a few months, like, and it's worth it. It's a great option for your career. So
Thank you so much, Christine, for joining us. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I've learned a lot of things from you.
good.
You're a very motivating person. You're very inspiring, and
Aw,
thank you so much for like joining us.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. All
you're
right.
welcome. Okay.